Jim Jones had no idea how the evening would conclude. The lights are flashing, voices that scream, glass fragments on the ground, and the icy steel of handcuffs that were drawing tighter around his wrists. A few hours ago, everything appeared to be as usual. Or, for someone who has spent years living in chaos, at least normal. He arrived at a Miami rooftop restaurant that was booked under a different name. Dinner should be quiet. Own table. Only him plus another woman. Absence of paparazzi. Not a public spectacle. Chrissy, no. Before she entered, no one knew she was taking a plane to Miami. She kept it a secret. She kept it from Jim as well. She sensed something though. Let's call it instinct. You may call it experience. Or perhaps it was just years of betrayal that had been simmering beneath the surface and now surfaced. The moment she entered and saw them together, time seemed to halt. For Jim, no, not for the woman seated on the other side. However, for Chrissy. Because all she had suppressed, every lie she had forgiven, every tear she had silently wiped away, came tumbling down in that instant. She refrained from shouting. First, no. She simply approached their table and uttered the following. "You flew out here for this, then?" The woman attempted to stand up. To keep Chrissy from approaching, Jim extended across the table. It was too late, though. Chrissy picked up a wine glass and threw it. It smashed into the wall. At that point, the yelling began. Individuals ducked. Chairs were tilted over. Jim got up and shouted back. He was shoved by Chrissy. He moved the table. Security came running in. It was anarchy, unadulterated, and explosive. The eatery attempted to silently close, but someone was already using their phone. The video went viral in a matter of minutes on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. The sirens then sounded. Police showed up. Chrissy was crying now, trembling, breathless, and furious. The spot where Jim had gripped her wrist during the struggle was crimson. Pointing at him, she spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I was touched by him in the elevator. Look at the cameras." It was sufficient. Jim Jones was immediately taken into custody for domestic abuse and disturbing the peace. That was only the start, though. The fact that a woman entered the precinct hours after Jim was sitting in holding, silent, and by himself was unknown to everyone. She didn't say anything. She was not obliged to. After signing her name at the front desk, she took a seat, covered her head with her hoodie, and waited. Torres Ashley. A name nobody has heard in a long time. Chrissy was aware, though. The admirers who had been around long enough also recalled it. In 2016, there were speculations that Jim had been missing for 3 weeks, with no interviews, no shows, and no updates. Simply disappeared. What about Chrissy? She was seen in tears outside a friend's Harlem apartment. People said it was just a break at the time, but the reality may now be edging out of the past. Ashley was no ordinary guest. She arrived by plane from Atlanta immediately after Jim made his one phone call. To Chrissy, no, not to his attorney. To a Georgia-registered private number, however. As the dawn rose, social media had already taken sides. There were those who blamed Jim. Some accused Chrissy. Everyone, however, secretly experienced heartbreak. This wasn't your typical famous couple breaking up. Even more terrible was witnessing two individuals ruin the things they had worked so hard to create over the years. Chrissy didn't say anything. No interviews, no live footage. Her Instagram story only had one black screen. The most heartbreaking aspect of betrayal is that it never originates from adversaries. It then became worse. They leaked screenshots, direct messages, voice memos. Jim wrote a letter to Janaea a few days prior to the Miami dinner. "You are already aware of its nature. I'm merely attempting to tidy up this Chrissy disaster." All of it was broken by that one line. Fans erupted. Blogs reposted it. Threads on Twitter broke out. However, the most eerie aspect was found in a leaked audio recording rather than via screenshots or tweets. Before the dinner had begun, a covert microphone from the restaurant captured Jim shouting in the elevator. "You believe I was unaware of you the previous year? Want to chat about betrayal?" Everything was altered by that single sentence. Perhaps this went beyond Jim's actions. Perhaps Chrissy was not as innocent as we all believed. Perhaps they both harbored secrets. All of the secrets, however, are now known. The detention, the woman on the side, the betrayed confidence. The question still stands as Chrissy departs the hotel without turning around, and Jim is released on bail. Does their love story finish here? or simply a new phase in a partnership that was at constant risk of disintegrating? Because even though they have argued, forgiven, and tried again numerous times, something feels different this time. This feels like the last time. This might be the true tragedy. When Jim Jones was released on bail from that Miami jail, the world had already decided what to do. They went viral. They were trending hashtags. His name was all over, but not in the way he had intended. He didn't talk to journalists. He kept his eyes off the cameras. All he did was hop into a black SUV and go into the night. However, the pieces began to come together while he was away. It began with the precinct's visitation logs. A photo was leaked. It was blurry but sufficiently clear. A woman wearing a hoodie and with half of her face hidden by sunglasses is logging in as Ashley Torres. The name, it created shockwaves. She was well known to her old fans. The woman from the 2016 rumors was this one. When Chrissy was left in New York, looking like a ghost of herself, and Jim vanished for weeks, that was the one that everyone spoke about. Back then, it was dismissed. No assertions, no confirmation. Just quiet. Now, that quiet was disrupted. Ashley hadn't just appeared out of nowhere. 3 hours after Jim's arrest, she arrived by plane from Atlanta, shortly after he made his first call from the precinct. An outgoing call to Georgia was recorded using a number that wasn't stored in his contacts. She got there by herself, kept quiet. She sat there as if she were at home. It was at that point that individuals began to make connections. This was not an overnight error. It took years for this to happen. She attempted to post his bail, but it was already being handled, according to someone inside the station. Despite this, she remained until Jim disappeared. There is no video of them departing together, but according to reports, Ashley left a few minutes after him. Chrissy had locked herself in a hotel suite on the other side of town in the meantime. Her phone was off, not a sighting. No comments. Her group didn't want to talk. But her pals, they wanted to express something. Her longtime stylist, Keisha, shared and then removed a story that said she gave him everything. Loyalty, moments, she was young. And this is his way of repaying her. Prior to being removed, the post alone had over 1 million shares. Fans were going deeper on Twitter. Someone uploaded old screenshots from 2020, including a grainy FaceTime that followers said depicted Jim with a lady who wasn't Chrissy. The screenshot was disregarded at the time. Now it was proof. Then the direct messages arrived. Discussions that were leaked between Jim and Janaya, an Instagram model. Messages that appeared to be recent, flirtatious, informal. However, it is rude in every manner. This isn't forever. Just let me handle Chrissy first, Jim says in one voice note. He seemed confident and had a tone that suggested he had done this before. As if the problem was avoiding detection, not juggling ladies. It was unbelievable to the fans. The same man Chrissy asked to marry her. In 2011, the same pair of individuals referred to goals. Those who said that since love was stronger than paper, they didn't need marriage. Now, the public saw that love bleed. However, it was not social media that caused the greatest harm. The source was inside the eatery. The audio recording of what sounded like the elevator altercation was leaked, purportedly from the building's security system. Too loud, yet not very clear. Jim's voice was irritated and tense. Are you really trying to pretend you're innocent? What did you do last year that you don't believe I know? You were also out here playing me. There was no reply from Chrissy. Nothing but quiet, then the elevator's ding when it arrived at the roof. It was that recording that changed everything. There was more to this than Jim's infidelity. This was war. A fight between two individuals that had buried so much beneath the surface that it was suddenly emerging. A few fans also began to question Chrissy. Did she have something to hide? Did she do something first, or was this truly simply about another woman? Still, it made no difference. For the general population, the harm was already done. Jim's staff made an effort to steer the narrative. He wrote the ambiguous message, "Sometimes love turns into lessons," on his Instagram. I'll talk when the moment is right. But cleaning up was too late. More was stated by Chrissy's silence than by any post. Her application for a protective order also said a lot. They weren't married legally. 17 years together, however, meant that they had shared history, properties, and suffering. More than just love was at stake for Jim if she pushed for their separation. Everything may be lost for him. What about that fear? When he left that jail, it was written all over his face. Not rage, not remorse. Simply the expression of a man who is aware that she might not return this time. This time, something had changed. Although they had previously argued and had endured family strife, public breakdowns, and suspicions of infidelity. Chrissy didn't insist on fixing it this time. Then she simply walked away. And Jim might have been most affected by that. The arrest? No. The headlines? No, not even the breaches. But the quiet. It's the quiet that only occurs when someone has reached their limit. Once that occurs, there is no way to go back. Jim and Chrissy were the only couple before the arrests, the rooftop incident, Ashley Torres, and the leaked audio. Two people in love, real, unadulterated, and wild. They were not flawless, not close at all. You could feel the passion between them, though, as soon as they entered a room. The chemical composition, the disorder, the kind that develops empires or destroys them. Love and hip-hop. New York introduced them to the glow in 2011. Chrissy wasn't just another girlfriend on reality TV. She was powerful, angular, the kind of lady that stood for her guy instead of just standing next to him. Everything ceased as she got down on one knee and proposed to Jim Jones on national television. People held their breath. It was not just audacious, but unprecedented. The proposal from a woman to a man on television, in front of everyone on Earth? Chrissy didn't care, though. She felt that she had waited long enough. Years of devotion, many late evenings over the years. Jim has spent years pursuing everything but commitment. Jim paused when she asked him that question when she exposed her heart honestly and vulnerably in front of millions of people. He didn't refuse. He didn't say yes, though. He put his arms around her, grinned, claimed to love her. But he failed to provide her with the response she was due. That instant, it provided all the information the world required. Chrissy had everything she needed. Jim was not. And perhaps he was never truly. The years passed. Together, they remained. Through arguments, family strife, success, and failure. Chrissy did not leave. She left and returned, then departed once again. However, love always drew her back. It was referred to as relationship goals when many on the internet said, if Chrissy can stay this loyal, anyone can. They coveted the connection, the heritage, and the fortitude. They failed to see the fissures, though. They were blind to the lonely evenings Chrissy spent waiting for a call that never arrived. They were not privy to the private disputes. The number of times she had to forgive things that were never acknowledged was unknown to them. Because it was difficult to love Jim. It was about surviving. Silence fell. A sacrifice was made. She received jewels from him, lavish travels, popularity with the general public. However, she never received the security she repeatedly requested. More than a ring, not merely a title, but tranquility. Peace also never materialized. Something always dragged them back when they attempted to advance. Family conflicts. Mama Jones never accepted her completely. Allegations of domineering conduct. Talk about side women. Despite never being on her finger, that wedding band grew heavier in the air with each passing year. In 2016, however, things came dangerously close to ending. It was almost a month before Jim was seen. No interviews, not present, not a word. Chrissy was by herself, be quiet, far away. People believed they would overcome it as usual and that it was simply another difficult time. But now that I think about it, perhaps that was when Ashley Torres initially came into the picture. That might have been the warning sign that nobody paid attention to. After everything they've been through, including proposals, TV celebrity, and creating enterprises together, everything is now collapsing in the worst way conceivable in 2025. Not in private, in no dignified manner, but in front of everyone on the planet. A video was leaked, one arrest. The front door of the past is being reopened by one former flame. It's poetic as well as unpleasant. For the very love story that people once admired is now the warning story of what occurs when one-sided allegiance occurs. Because no one ever recovered completely, history keeps repeating itself. The broken things of pride, silence, and treachery cannot be repaired by love alone. And now, the same woman who once bowed down has at last found the strength to leave on her feet. What about the man who previously told her to ride or die? All he can see is a blank area where eternity formerly existed. Breakups are not always the end of love. Silence is the end. Not a text, not a resolution. No regrets. Just two individuals who were previously highly important to one another are now moving in different directions. acting as though they are strangers. That is what transpired between Chrissy and Jim. Not a last battle. Avoid a dramatic farewell. Nothing more than a rooftop covered in flashing cameras, smashed plates, and irrevocable words. What about the depressing part? This wasn't a sudden development. It took years for this to happen. Silent suffering for years, of mercy without transformation. The experience of waiting for someone to mature and knowing that they will never do so. Chrissy gave everything to him. Her name, youth, commitment, and silence. When he wasn't even able to stand by himself, she supported him. When she eventually had enough and mustered the courage to leave, it wasn't because she no longer loved him. She knew she was the only one still battling, so that's why. Jim believed she was always going to return, that she would be there for him no matter what he did or who he did it with. Holding out, all set to mend things once more. She didn't though this time. She refrained from crying on camera this time, stayed quiet on Instagram, didn't plead with everyone to support her. She simply walked away. And in her quiet, she spoke everything he had been ignoring for years. Jim is on his own now. He is surrounded by friends who don't know him well, adored by followers who are unaware of the man, just the music. Family members who are unable to shield him from the one thing he has consistently avoided, defending him responsibility. Even if he's not in jail, he's nonetheless trapped. Stuck in a vicious circle of lies, excuses, and ego. Chrissy, who is undoubtedly sitting by a window someplace in New York, is at last free. She is neither bitter nor damaged, without having to defend herself. Free from the burden of waiting for someone who would never come. Without the burden of a love story that only appeared lovely on screen but felt like a jail behind the scenes, you may start over. Not all love tales are supposed to last, they say. Some are there to teach you that love shouldn't feel that way. Moreover, the world remains silent as their tale ends, not with promises or forever, but with one last betrayal. For despite the loudness of the drama, the true heart touch was the silence that ensued.